안녕하세요. 오늘은 쌤TV에서 특별한 손님과 함께하는 시간을 마련하게 됐는데요. 저는 사회를 맡게 된 이현주입니다. 오늘 제 옆에는 부천 성만교회 담임 목사님이신 이찬용 목사님이 함께하고 계시고요. 그 옆에는 이렇게 미국에서 멋진 손님이 오셨는데요. 이한 목사님 가정입니다. 어떤 분이신지 우리 직접 소개하는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다.
My name's Ian Hodge, and this is my wife, Michaela Hodge. And we have 4 children, Calvin Hodge, who is 11, Ava, who is 9, Wesley, who is 8, and Jonathan, who is 6.
Wow, so you have 4 children.
That's right.
Wonderful. So first question will be, what brought you to Korea? So 이찬영 목사님, 이분들이 어떻게 한국에 오시게 되셨는지 목사님께서 좀 설명을 해주시겠어요?
네, 저희 교회가 이제 미국에 자매 결혼 맺고 왔다 갔다 했으면 학생들도 좋겠다라는 생각으로 오랫동안 기도하고 있었는데 지난 6월 때 한미 목회자 포럼이 있었어요. 거기 제 친구 목사님이 김혜원 목사님이라고 17년 미국에서 목회를 했는데 주일날 시골교회에서 예배를 드려보지 않을래요? 라고 질문을 했습니다. 근데 우리는 미국 가면 늘 주일이면 예배를 인도했지 참석해 본 적은 없잖아요. 그래서 그럽시다. 그러고 가서 샌프란시스코에서 내려가다가 그 시골 아주 작은 마을 교회에 들어갔는데 우리 목사님이 예배를 인도하고 있었어요. 한 50명, 60명 애들까지. 근데 너무 밝은 거예요. 분위기도 좋고. 그래서 이 교회면 우리가 같이 섬기고 같이 교류할 수 있겠다. 그래서 저희가 초청하게 됐습니다.
So, is this your first time visiting Korea?
Yes.
Then can you tell us your first impression? So you visited several places, right?
Yes.
So what was the best place to you?
Well, it's hard to say. We've enjoyed our entire visit so much. At the generosity of Pastor Lee and his church, we've been so many places. We've done so many things.
Yeah.
Our first day here, we didn't really know exactly what to expect, and we didn't know how easy or difficult it would be to travel. And so in addition to the fact that we really enjoyed visiting the market and that we really enjoyed getting a perspective on Seoul from Lode Tower, we really enjoyed the people who have been with us each day.
Yes, very much.
So last week you did sermon at Seongman Church, right?
Yes.
That's right.
And how was your sermon and what did you feel?
Well, I was very nervous. I have never preached and had it translated before, and I didn't know if I would do a good job or if I would disappoint the people I was speaking to. So I remembered that it's his job to do the heavy lifting. It's his job to communicate the gospel clearly, and mine is to be faithful. And then when we actually did deliver the message at the church, the people were so excited to see us. They made us feel so loved that in a lot of ways that was the great sermon.
I've also heard that, Seongman Church is very energetic.
Yes.
So did you feel it?
We did.
Oh, yes.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
We didn't need any coffee that day or anything. It was wonderful.
By the way, can I ask you one more thing?
Yes.
What is your favorite Korean food?
Oh, that's hard to choose.
Yeah.
된장찌개를 그렇게 잘 먹는다. 두 분 다?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
That's
I
so
really
good.
love that.
Wow.
We love it. Yes.
근데 뭐 한국 음식 가리지 않고 너무 잘 먹어서 선택을 이분들이 하도 그냥 다 괜찮다고.
How about your children? Are they enjoying Korean food?
Yes.
Our oldest keeps, every time people ask what kind of food, he keeps saying, more Korean food.
Really? Did they say anything about their visiting?
They are really enjoying it. They especially enjoyed getting to spend time with all the kids at church. The kids at church were so welcoming and they felt comfortable. We hardly saw them all day when we were at church. They just took off with all the
Wow.
kids. They are very excited to keep in touch. They can't wait to see everyone again. At home, there aren't a whole lot of kids in our community, especially and at our church. And it's just a small town and a lot of the population is older.
They must be so excited.
Yes, they are having a really great time. They're sad to think that it's almost we're gonna go home.
Uh-huh.
They
Yeah,
don't want to go.
they don't want to go.
Oh, your church name is Lemon Church. It's the name of the fruit, right?
Yes.
So could you explain a little bit about how is it named and where is it located, and can you introduce your church?
Certainly. So we are from Central California. So we're about halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And we probably, in that valley, grow more food than about anywhere in the rest of the world. And where we live in particular, there's a lot of citrus farming.
Wow.
And Lemon Cove, where we live, is one of the first places in our area to grow lemons. So we are Lemon Cove, and our church is Lemon Cove Community Church. Our community is very small. About 300 people live in our town, although there are many thousands more in the surrounding countryside. And we are the only church in Lemon Cove.
So then many of them will be actually farmers? Right?
레몬 교회가 그러고 116년인가 됐대요. 레몬 교회 제가 처음 갔어요. 그래서 이제 우리 이한 목사님이 예배 인도하는데 일단은 그 시골 교회고 다 이제 나이 드신 분들이 많고 이제 은퇴하신 분들이 많은데 그 꼬마하고 할머니하고 같이 주보를 나눠주는 거예요. 그리고 굉장히 유쾌해요. 우리 목사님이 그 예배 인도하는 것도 그렇고 장로님들이 성찬식하고 같이 찬양하는 것도 참 은혜롭고 따뜻하다라는 느낌을 받았어요.
네. So, what ministry do you focus on while pastoring your church?
Sure. One of the big challenges in a place like where we live is people tend to be very conservative, which is a wonderful thing, but it often means that we do things because we've always done them. And sometimes our faith becomes like that as well. Well, my parents were Christians, and so I will be a Christian because that's what we've always done. So I think we feel a deep call to disciple making in Lemon Cove. That first of all, we want people to make sure that they really know Jesus, they really understand who He is, and they really have a personal relationship with Him. And then we want to make sure that that relationship goes deeper. And so the mission statement for our church is that we want to share the good news of the gospel. We want to make disciples. We want to see our community and even beyond our community transformed by God's work in our lives. That's very general and very broad, but it shapes the way we interact with every person we meet.
Our church originally was First Presbyterian Church of Lemon Cove, and a few years ago we changed the church name to Lemon Cove Community Church because as the only church in our area, we recognize the importance of reaching the community around us. We really saw that as our mission to serve and reach our community. So we wanted to
Unity
emphasize.
is the key word
Yes.
to rename the church.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wonderful thoughts.
Oh, thank you.
Then, do you have any generation gap, or little children are there and old people are there together? Is there any way you could cope them together? Any ideas?
We're the youngest people in our church, and that's been true for the last 10 years. And that's been something that we've been happy to embrace, but it's not something we want to be true of the church forever. And along those lines, we want people in our church and in our community and everywhere to understand that what young people need most is people who will be interested in them. We wouldn't be here ourselves unless people who are older than us loved us and taught us and encouraged us. And especially as we get older and as we encounter people in our communities who are older, sometimes it feels like these young people are ruining everything, right? And they're these young people with their loud music and their whatever else we may say. And saying, how do we be for young people instead? How do we be excited about their future? How do we give them room to make their own mistakes because we made mistakes when we were young? And then how do we help them stand back up and embrace all that God has for them?
Something that we're working on is helping older members of our community understand how they actually can have a meaningful impact on the lives of the children at our church and in the community. I think a lot of times as people get older, they start to feel like, what can I do? You know, how can I relate to these children? And they feel intimidated by the idea of working with them very regularly. So we're trying to figure out how to help encourage people to see ways that they can interact, that intergenerational connection.
I think it's good challenge because your church is not that big.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful chance to,
Yes.
to try that ideas, right?
Yes.
Well, and a church our size runs on relationships.
Yes.
And actually, one of the things I've been really blessed by here is watching Pastor Lee with our children and with the children in his church. And I want to bring all my people from Lemon Cove to Bucheon and say, watch Pastor Lee and do what he does.
근데 우리 성마교회는 아주 큰 교회인데요. 혹시 제너레이션 간에 이렇게 해볼 수 있는 어떤 아이디어나 활동이 있으신가요?
네, 저희도 뭐 어른부터 아이들까지 다 어울려서 하는 프로그램도 있고요. 같이 어울려 특송도 하고 같이 청소도 하고 뭐 그런 것들 해요. 그런데 내년 1월 달에 18명이 가요.
그렇군요.
5일 동안 이 교회 뭐 장로님들 이런 댁에서 좀 묵고 그리고 이 아이들 4명이 있는데 핸드폰이 없어요. 자리인데.
진짜요?
네.
No phones.
Oh, yes.
맑은 아이들 있잖아요.
네.
그 아이들하고 같이 어울려서 우리 아이들이 맑은 그런 모습들도 좀 이렇게 같이 경험하고
느껴볼 수 있는.
그런 것들을 좀 경험했으면 하는 마음에 우리 이렇게 계속 교류하려고 합니다.
So then, can I ask you one big question? Now the Koreans' birth rate is decreasing rapidly. So as a parent of 4 children and as a Christian, could you tell me the importance of Christian nurturing?
Yeah, that's something that has been really struck by recently myself because the birth rate in the U.S. is decreasing as well, and the way that young people think of getting married and having families, everyone tends to have this sense of I need to have all my ducks in a row and be fully independent and have everything figured out before I get married, and I feel like that's pushing people further and further back in how long they wait before they get married or have children. But for our children, I really thinking about how to encourage them, how important it is to get married and have a family, and that is part of what we're called to do. Mm-hmm. One of the best ways to grow in our faith, to understand how we relate to God, is through having families. This is actually really important, and encouraging my daughter to be excited to be a mother. That has been my dream job, to be a mom. So encouraging some of those ideas with the kids.
And I think, too, our social structures in the United States, and I'd imagine in Korea as well, are breaking down.
Yeah. Yes.
Whether it's the family or friendship or the way we think of ourselves in relation to our country and in relation to the world is changing. And change isn't necessarily good or bad, it's just change. But I think it does create that instability that we were talking about. And practical ways of making a difference there are to love and encourage each other and to intentionally adopt people into our families and say, hey, how do I mentor you and point you toward the good stuff in life? And you have a brand new family, and how do we show up and encourage you in that? Because one of the big things we encounter is with 4 children, people sometimes look at us like we're strange, or people sometimes ask us, how do you do that? And you just kind of do it in one respect, but we also have strong support structures from our own family, from a church that has loved us well. So if we want to see more babies in our churches, maybe the first question we can ask is, well, how do I love these young people who could have kids in their lives?
Yeah.
And when we do that, I think we give them the freedom to have families.
I see. Reverend Lee mentioned that you don't give them phones, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yes, cruel and unusual
the
punishment.
virtues and traditions and all Christian faith will be their issue because they need to have their own time to think who's God to themselves, right? So is there any challenge or hardships in growing your children as a Christian?
No, we've never had any trouble. Living in a rural community, we're more isolated, and our children have struggled with that. And part of that's the choice that we have made in being part of the Lemon Co family. And it's been a wonderful choice for us and for our children, but it's also been a challenge. And we find that we feel pressure in that our children are not always like other children. They don't have the same experience that other children do. And sometimes we worry, I think, that they're missing opportunities that maybe they should have. But we also see the flip side of that. They're gaining a lot in terms of adults who love them and who are building really good things into their lives. And they're not grappling with some of the really difficult challenges that other kids are grappling with in our culture. And when they encounter those, they'll be better prepared instead of having to figure out at 9 years old, what do I think about gender in the United States, which no 9-year-old should have to process.
Yeah.
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 목사님 교회도 어린아이들 교회에서 많이 품잖아요. 애프터스쿨도 하시고. 그래서 아이들도 사춘기도 별로 없이 신앙 공동체 안에서 잘 자랄 수 있는 것 같은데요. 목사님 교회도 아이들 더 많이 품음으로써 확실히 다르다는 걸 좀 경험을 하시나요?
글쎄, 그게 부족하죠, 사실. 이 교회의 힘만으로는 벽을 느껴요, 사실. 그래서 교회가 사실은 이제 우리가 다음 세대라는 단어들을 많이 쓰는데 저는 사실 별로 좋아하지 않아요. 단어는 고급지고 뭐 괜찮아 보이고 이해는 하겠어요. 자라는 세대들도 신앙으로 같이 어울려야 된다라는 걸 하지만 다음 세대라는 단어를 쓰기 전에 교회는 공동체다라는 인식을 먼저 갖고 있으면 어린아이부터 할머니, 할아버지들까지 다 같이 어울려서 할 수 있는 어떤 것, 그걸 좀 많이 연구하고 실험하고 그런 것들이 필요하지 않나 생각합니다. 네.
By the way, what do you think of Reverend Lee? What kind of character does he have?
My first impression, he and a friend of his, as well as their wives, came in very early to our church, and they said, we'd just like to pray for a while. And we said, that's wonderful. We're so glad you're here. Pray. And then they said, well, maybe we'll stay for a little bit of worship. And he said, that's wonderful. Please stay and worship. And then worship was over. We were still spending time together. And Pastor Lee said, you must promise to come visit us in Korea. And we said, absolutely. Someday, we will come out to Korea. And he called me next week and said, we want you to come as soon as possible. We're going to help make that happen. Really, they made it happen. So it was clear from the first, his generosity and his kindness were so apparent and in evidence that we almost didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because you don't meet people who offer such relationship so immediately.
Yeah.
And then as we've been here, that impression is just reinforced over and over again. And then there's a whole church of people who are following their pastor as he follows Jesus. And every single person that we have met has shown us love and kindness and care and generosity and hospitality and every good thing. It's hard to put into words, the way we've been treated in such a positive way.
What about you? So, how do you feel about him and his church?
Yeah, wonderful. It's been great. Like, as Ian was saying, when he first said you should come to Korea, it was thinking, someday we'll have to figure out how to make that happen. But it felt kind of too good to be true. It's hard to, like Ian was saying, it's hard to put into words, I guess. But it's funny. Maybe a little illustration. When we started telling our family, we're going to South Korea, and some some friends and family members, like the ones who weren't Christians, were like, "What are you talking about? Why would you do that?" And all our Christian friends said, "Wow, God is amazing." That was the feeling I had as well. Like, even when we first met, I just thought, you know, God really brought us together. It's been wonderful to see him at the church, and the way that everyone connects with each other and with the children, it's just wonderful. It feels like a huge family. Yeah.
So you've been here for 10 days, right? So could you tell me where you visited?
Okay.
Well, where haven't we been, right?
We went to the market. I don't remember the name.
Traditional market?
Yes, traditional market. Actually,
someone generously offered to get us hanbok, which we were very excited. So we went shopping for that. We went to Lore Tower, and then we went to Everland.
yeah, Everland.
Yes. Yes. And then we had a tour of the church. We went to the seaside.
아 강화도.
강화,
아 강화도.
강화 아일랜드.
거기서 꽃게하고 뭐 새우. 근데 이분들은 그 잘 못 드시라고 비싼 건데.
Now, can I ask you one last question? This is a bit heavy issue. The United States is the country who brought gospel to Korea, right? And because of the Korean churches grew, and now we have a lot of prayer issues, church issues here, and you also must have your own American church issues, right? Yes. And can you tell me what do you think of American churches now, and what is your prayer request?
Sure. So American churches now, of course, there are as many different American churches as there are different American churches. But some of the most difficult issues that we're facing are the extreme. It's not the things that make the headlines, but it's what's behind the headlines. So it's not exactly what do we do in regard to the great debates around gender and around human sexuality, but I think why are these debates so angry? And why are we struggling, to speak to people we disagree with anymore? And I think that as Christians, actually, we are the best equipped to, instead of joining all of the shouting and all of the anger, to point people toward a better way. Most issues, you're either yes or you're no. You're this side or you're that side. But as Christians, I think we belong to Jesus. We don't belong to this political party or that political party. We don't belong to this interest group or that interest group. And I always think of Joshua entering the land in the book of Joshua outside of Jericho, and he encounters the angel who's got his sword drawn. And he says, well, are you for us or against us? And the angel says, neither. I am the angel of the armies of the Lord. And I think that the implicit question is, are you on my side? Are you on God's side? Not have you made your own side? And I think if we do that, we find a place of peace to start having real conversations with people that no one else can find that peace outside of Jesus. So I think there's a great opportunity in front of the church in America to be a place of peace in the midst of these controversies. But it also takes a lot of wisdom that only the Holy Spirit can provide in order to be there and do that. So the great prayer request I have for our brothers and sisters in Korea is, would you pray that we as the American church would put our allegiance to Jesus above any other allegiance, and that you would pray that the Holy Spirit would give us wisdom so that we will be able to stand with the angel of the armies of the Lord. That's, again, a big idea and a big prayer request. But I really think if we can do that, people are going to meet Jesus in ways that they haven't in a long time.
Good point. 목사님 특별히 또 이 두 분께, 우리 또 성도님들께 하시고 싶은 말씀이 있으신지요?
사실은 좋은 신학교 나왔어요. 탈보 신학교 나와서 처음으로 그 시골, 우리나라로 말하면 어디? 지리산 어디 한 구석에 조그만 시골 마을, 그런 데서 이 두 젊은 부부가 아기 낳으면서 10년 거기 있었던 거예요. 그래서 하나님이 이 부부를 위로하시는구나, 우리를 통해서 그런 마음 가졌고요. 그냥 좋은 관계 계속했으면 좋겠다라는 생각. 그리고 이현 목사님 부부도 그런 똑같은 생각인 것 같아요. 열흘 동안 이 가정 지켜보면서요, 가정의 중요성을 다시 생각한 것 같아요. 부부, 아이들. 우리는 그냥 교육, 이렇게 공부, 대학, 여기에 포커스를 맞춘 것 같은데, 미국 아이들 왜 맑잖아요, 밝고. 근데 우리는 중학교 1학년만 되면 좀 안 그런 것 같아서 저희 아이들을 자꾸만 여기다 집어넣고 가서 하는 것도 그런 모습을 좀 봤으면 좋겠다. 그리고 이 부부가 살아가고 부부가 아이들 케어하고 이러는 것들이 우리 한국 크리스천 가정들, 부부들이 굉장히 저도 많이 배웠어요.
네.
굉장히 많이 배울 것 같습니다.
아, 좋습니다. 오늘 인터뷰를 통해서 가정이 하나 되고 또 교회가 하나 되는 게 무엇일지 생각해보는 좋은 기회였는데요. 다음에도 이렇게 함께 모시고 멋진 이야기 나눌 수 있으면 좋겠습니다. 함께 해주신 여러분 감사합니다.
네, 고맙습니다.
고맙습니다.
땡큐.
감사합니다.